Hey you guys, it's me, Lamel again. Back at the monster tank. It's a little bit more cleared up now that Mr. Paku's done slapping himself all around. But I want to show you guys what happens if the power goes out. So a lot of people are very worried to use sumps because they're very worried that it will overflow if the power goes out or something. And that's true. It could happen. One of the only things that I noticed, the only issue I've had is my little pre-filter sponge I have over there, and the overflow gets clogged up. So sometimes this will actually pump too much and the water level of my tank will rise and like touch the glass. It's never overflowed because it takes a while for that to happen. But I've sat here on the floor like this and looked up and seen that the water was touching the glass and said, oh heck. And then you notice like the sump is you would notice the sump is real low. So I'm going to show you what happens if there's a power outage. One other thing that's happened to me before, while I'm doing a water change on this before, I've turned off all my pumps. But I left this air stone. I have an air stone over here that's an uplift that pulls water in from this tube into the overflow, just in case that little grids gets full. This also helps to feed the overflow. So if this air pump is on, this is the air pump that's bringing water up and over into the overflow right there. So we're going to simulate a power outage. So in a power outage, the air pump would turn off. So we'll just unplug that. And then this power strip has both of my pumps. So one power strip has the pumps and the other power strip has like the other stuff. Boom. So these pumps are off now. Just the air stone is on. Just the sponge filter is on. This is making Mr. Paku very upset. Alright, so you can hear it draining. And we're looking at the sump here. You see water still coming into the sump. When I built this sump, I had to measure how many gallons it was from the very, very tippy top of my tank to the bottom part of this overflow. And I calculated that into this max level here. So this red line right here, this max line, is the maximum water I can have in the sump while it's running, because if there's a power outage, certain amount of water drains from the tank down into here. And that was all the math I had done. You can see some water is still coming. And there is a video where I built the sump, and you can actually see the sump out on the counter with all the measurements and stuff written on it. And I've been using it for a while now, and a lot of like my drawings and stuff have worn off, but like I drew it all out because I didn't understand how sump filters worked, and I was also very nervous that I would overflow. So I did like a bunch of studying. I had never done a sump before. Mostly the sumps that I seen were on saltwater tanks, and I didn't understand. I was like wondering, like, can I do this on a freshwater tank? And so that's why I over designed it as far as like putting so much marks and stuff. So you can barely see it now because it's all old and crusty. It says water flow in, and then it shows you like the flow, and I even put like the measurement in inches. Like that's a 12-inch long piece of glass. There's 2 1/4 inches space there, 3 inches there. And so I designed it that way, and then I siliconed in my pieces of glass. And so the power's been off for a little bit now. The pump is not pumping anymore. And this is it. This is how much water came down. which is that much. So it just takes a little bit of math, and I actually forget the math. I wrote it down here, the overflow protection, I think. Like I wrote how many gallons this was and how many gallons this overflow was. I think it was like, this was something like 8 gallons overflow or more. And then how much overflow would come from here would be like 5 or 6 gallons. So I can link to that older video underneath of this one. It's not going to be very good quality. I'm not saying that this one is good quality either, but I'm pretty sure I filmed that one vertically, and I'm a little bit better at filming now than I was a few months ago. So sorry if you have to suffer through that, but if you want to see like the sump out on the counter and me testing it and me explaining all the measurements and how the overflow power outage protection stuff works, then you're gonna have to sit through it until I build that one, until I finish building that one. Then I can do the same thing again on that one. So because that bigger one is going to be a replacement for this one, because I only have like 5 inches here to get my arm in and out, and so it's really hard to clean this thing. And when something's really hard to clean, it gets neglected. And I've let hair algae get in here and duckweed. And duckweed's really good for stuff like this. There's no duckweed up in the tank, just in the sump. So I'm pretty sure the Oscars and Pacu would eat it anyway. But yeah, that's how the sump works as far as like what happens if the water turns off, if the electricity goes out. But look, I'll plug in this air pump again. I don't know if it'll even do it. This air line goes down in there and brings water up, or it's supposed to anyway. I think I can hear it. It would take a while to fill up, but there's an air line that I dropped down into here, exactly how a sponge filter works. And it brings extra water from down here up and over into the overflow, just in case it gets clogged up. And so then I'll turn this back on. And there it goes. And the fish are like, what are you doing? Are you going to feed us again? What's happening? Why are you doing this? You're not changing the water. You're just turning the pumps off and on. Oh, let me show you this. Sorry. I'm like closing the doors, but I'll just show you. Remember, it was at the max line. I designed it so that even if I had the sump filled up to the max line with the pumps running, that it would be able to take this much water from the fish tank. But I guess when I've had some evaporation or whatever, but when I'm doing my water changes, this is the rule. Never fill this up more than max, because you need this empty space to be your buffer zone, your protection zone. So if the pump turns off, it's okay if the water rises up over these filter baffles, these sump baffles, but you don't want the water to come up out over this. But in the past, I've done water changes, and I turned off the pumps, and I had my pump up in the tank and was sucking water out, and I forgot to turn that air stone off. So the water was still uplifting through this tube and coming down into the sump, but I had the doors closed, and it was like a really slow trickle, so I didn't hear it, and I was like, why is the carpet all wet? And then I looked in, and I was overflowing the sump because I didn't turn off that air stone over there, the uplift tube. So the whole time I was draining the tank, doing like a 50% water change or whatever, water was still going up this tube and into the sump. So this is as low as the sump is gonna go, because that's just how fast like the overflow's going, how long it takes to get through the sump, and then the pump sucks it up. There's a betta fish and a guppy living down here too. There's some shrimp on this side. Can't see them, but they're in there. So yeah, that's how the sump works, and I hope that one day you guys will try to do a sump because they're pretty cool. They add extra water volume to your system. You can hide the heater down here. I have extra sponge filters down here. I haven't plugged them in because I just have a little air pump over there that's not strong enough to power all 4 of these. So when I build the new sump, I'll make it so that these sponge filters are actually turned on and working. And we're going to eliminate the duckweed and the hair algae, but the duckweed and the hair algae help to keep the system clean. So I know it looks ugly and it's disgusting, but this is nature. So water quality is okay, and anything that can keep the nitrates down. Like, I'm letting that sword plant send its babies. I'm gonna take them soon and cut them and put them in plants and put them in a different tank, but anything that can keep the nitrates down in a monster tank, I don't care. It's like lots of algae and stuff. I gotta scrape the glass again, but this tank needs to get redone, so I'm not really worried about how it looks right now today, because I know once I put the work in to redo the sump and rescape it, it'll be better. So okay, that's it for this video, you guys, and I'll see you next time. And if you have any questions about the sump, put it in the comments.